Welcome to Nuwambuli's Cultural Center. Although our facility is located in Cape Mudge on Quadra Island, we represent 15 communities whose territories span from the most northern tip of Vancouver Island all the way to the Comox Valley. We first opened our doors in 1979 to welcome home the Sacred Potlatch Collection, repatriated from the federal government. Potlatching is a way of life for our peoples. It involves many months of preparation and planning and is a celebration steeped in tradition. Among the Kwakwaka'wakw people, the word potlatch means to give. Potlatches were held to validate important events such as marriages, the giving of names, and the recognition of the mourning cycle. During the potlatch, guests would receive generous ceremonial hospitality, feasts, and gifts. By accepting these offerings, guests acknowledged their role as witness in the ceremony. Gifts were given outright with no interest or repayment expected or required. In 1884, as part of the federal government's programs of assimilation and acculturation of First Nations peoples, the potlatch was banned. Refusing to relinquish this important life cycle event pushed the ceremony underground, away from the watchful eye of the Indian agents. A large potlatch was held in the winter of 1922 on Village Island, which caught the attention of local authorities. As a result, several arrests and jail terms were made. To keep their nobility and chiefs from prosecution, many attendees relinquished their sacred regalia and ceremonial items. The anti-potlatch laws were rescinded in 1951, but it was too late for many of the pieces of our confiscated ceremonial items which had been placed in museums and private collections around the world. The journey to bring our cultural treasures home began in the early 1920s with the dedicated and determined efforts of our elders who negotiated the return of the Sacred Potlatch Collection with the federal government. To facilitate and fulfill the repatriation agreement, a public house was built to house the collection. This is Nuwambuli's facility. Although this was a mandatory condition for the return of the collection, very limited operating funds were provided, and as a result, we have struggled to keep our doors open. We also continue to deal with the devastating effects of the residential school and their impact on our communities. Cultural traditions have been compromised, and language has been eroded to the brink of extinction. Nuwambuli's Cultural Center is helping to reignite and reunite the traditions and languages which have sustained our people since time immemorial. We are anxious to inspire our children and youth through programs that provide meaningful opportunities for cultural engagement and learning. Our elders had a vision for a strong and prosperous future that benefited not only the Likwita peoples, but all our neighbors, north and south, east and west. Today, Nuwambuli's is a center of excellence that celebrates the language and culture of the Likwita peoples. It is the permanent home of the Sacred Potlatch Collection, where thousands of visitors each year come to share our history and learn our cultural heritage. Under the direction of the Board of Directors, many of whom are descended from the original owners of the collection, we continue to evolve to meet the changing needs of our community. There is an urgency to capture the memories, language, culture, and tradition of the elders, which will help ensure that the Likwita peoples not only survive, but thrive under the influence of a new generation of learners. We need to find a path to financial stability that will allow Nuwambuli's to continue the important work currently underway. Our research, repatriation, and interpretation work must continue so that our communities have a source of information and a portal for accessing archives that document our stories, language, and histories. We must remain committed to ensuring that there is an avenue for cultural and artistic expression that allows our youth to capture and explore their cultural identity. Tonight, as we come together to raise much-needed funds, we ask that you remember the journey that lies before us and the role you will play in helping us reach and fulfill our potential. We have a shared responsibility to protect the national treasures of the Sacred Potlatch Collection, which has been entrusted to us by our elders. We have a responsibility to help guide our children and youth to opportunities for learning and expression, if for no other reason than to ensure that another generation will not be removed from the rich cultural heritage that helps at least in part to define our peoples. Without your generous support, our ability to continue is threatened. We gratefully acknowledge the effort of each artist and thank them for continuing the vibrant cultural traditions they have been gifted, and for their unwavering support of our cultural center. Their beautifully crafted pieces represent the history of our people, the generations who have come before us, and the promise of a better future for our children. We hope this evening will inspire you and that you will share your experience with others. In doing so, you become part of our history and part of our story. We thank you for joining us and look forward to welcoming you to the village again.